The call that ended Tommy Winter's life came in at 3:17 a.m. I know because I was sitting 2 cubicles away when it happened. 1 minute he was fine. Tired, sure, but who isn't during the graveyard shift at Mid-Plains Customer Solutions in Lincoln, Nebraska? The next minute, blood was pouring from his ears, nose, and eyes as he convulsed in his chair. His headset crackled with static so loud I could hear it from where I sat. Tommy's mouth opened in a silent scream, his fingers clutching at the keyboard like he was trying to type something. A warning, maybe. But it was too late. By the time our night supervisor, Deborah, made it over to his station, Tommy was gone. Just gone. Not dead. I mean literally gone. His body had vanished, leaving only his headset, a splatter of blood on his monitor, and his chair still spinning slowly. The official story was that Tommy quit without notice. That's what HR told us the next day. His cubicle was cleaned and reassigned within 24 hours. No police, no investigation. Nobody seemed to care that the security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during his shift. Nobody except me. My name is Mike Halsey. I've been working at Mid-Plains for 9 months, ever since I dropped out of UNL and needed quick cash. It's just a job, answer calls, solve problems, rinse and repeat. At least, that's what I thought. 3 days after Tommy disappeared, I found a manila envelope in my locker. Inside was a handwritten note in what I recognized as Tommy's messy scrawl and a laminated card with numbered rules. The note was simple. Mike, if you're reading this, I'm gone. They got me. Don't let them get you too. Follow these rules. I almost threw it away, almost convinced myself it was a sick joke, but then I started noticing things. The way calls would sometimes drop when customers mentioned certain phrases. The way my supervisor, Deborah's eyes seemed to reflect light like a cat's when the office was dark. The way some callers breathed, or didn't. My first unusual call came the night after I found Tommy's note. The caller ID showed a string of numbers that didn't look like any phone number I'd seen before. 17, 94, 13-1. The voice on the other end wasn't human. It spoke English, but the cadence was wrong, like someone had taught a machine how to imitate human speech patterns, but couldn't quite nail the nuances. I need to speak with Thomas Winters, it said. I froze, remembering rule number 2 on Tommy's list. If anyone asks for an employee who no longer works here, never say they're gone. Say they're assisting another customer and offer to help instead. I'm sorry, Thomas is currently assisting another customer. My name is Mike. How can I help you today? There was a pause and the static on the line intensified. For a moment, I thought I heard whispering, multiple voices speaking in unison. Very well, Michael Halsey of 1122 Garfield Street, apartment 3B. You will suffice. I never gave my address. I never gave my full name. That's when I knew. Tommy wasn't crazy. The rules weren't a joke, and my life depended on following them perfectly. Hello, viewers. If you wish your stories or experiences to be narrated by me, share them on our own subreddit, which you can join from the description below. I will pick the stories from the community and narrate them, and every once in a while, we will host a 3-hour story compilation. The following morning, I sat in my car in the Westfield Gateway Mall parking lot, trembling as I reread Tommy's list. The mall buzzed with Saturday shoppers, normal people with normal lives. I envied them. There were 7 rules total, typed neatly on cardstock and laminated. Mid-Plains, Customer Solutions, Special Protocol, Rule number 1, never answer calls from numbers that aren't properly formatted, area code plus 7 digits. If you accidentally pick up, immediately transfer to extension 0000. Rule number 2, if anyone asks for an employee who no longer works here, never say they're gone. Say they're assisting another customer and offer to help instead. Rule number 3, If a caller addresses you by your full name without you providing it, end the call immediately. Enter code 709XZ in the call log. Rule number 4. Never stay on a call longer than 17 minutes. If the caller tries to keep you on the line, say, "I need to place you on a brief hold," and transfer to extension 0000. Rule number 5. If you hear breathing but no speaking for more than 30 seconds, ask, "How may I direct your call?" exactly 3 times. If there's no response, hang up. Do not log this call. Rule number 6. If a caller mentions coming to visit you or references your personal life in any way, immediately alert a supervisor. Do not return to your desk alone. Rule number 7. Never, under any circumstances, answer calls between 3:14 a.m. and 3:19 a.m. Let them go to voicemail. Delete any voicemails received during this time without listening to them. I stared at rule number 7, my blood running cold. Tommy vanished at 3:17 a.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Deborah. "Night shift again tonight. Don't be late." The Mid-Plains office building sat on the outskirts of Lincoln, a generic 3-story brick structure alongside Interstate 80. During the day, it housed regular customer service operations for a dozen different companies. But at night, only our department, special accounts, operated. I swiped my keycard at 10:45 p.m. and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The overhead lights flickered as I walked down the hallway toward our section, passing rows of empty cubicles. Only 5 of us worked nights: me, Deborah, Jason, Krista, and now someone named Seth who had taken Tommy's place. "You look like shit," Krista said as I dropped into my chair. Krista Novak had been here longest, almost 2 years. She was in her late 20s with dark circles under her eyes and 3 empty Red Bulls already on her desk. "Rough night," I mumbled, not meeting her gaze. I wondered if she knew about the rules, if any of them did. "First call's always the worst," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It gets easier when you accept what's happening." I snapped my head up, but she'd already turned back to her computer, adjusting her headset. At exactly 11 p.m., the system automatically set our status to available. My first call came through seconds later. "Mid-Plains Customer Solutions, this is Mike. How can I help you tonight?" The voice that responded sounded elderly, but with an unsettling echo, as if speaking from the bottom of a well. "I need to confirm my appointment. It's very important." According to my screen, this was a routine call for Nebraska Consolidated Medical, one of our client companies, but something felt off. "I'd be happy to help with that. May I have your name and date of birth?" "My name is William Thornton. I was born May 4th, 1937. I typed the information into our database. No results. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thornton. I'm not finding any appointments. Which doctor are you scheduled with?" "Dr. Harrison, May 4th, 1937. The voice repeated the date of birth instead of answering my question. "Sir, that's your birth date. I need to know which doctor." "May 4th, 1937. The day I was born. The day I died." A chill ran through me. I glanced at the call timer. 4 minutes, 32 seconds. "Mr. Thornton, I think there's been a mistake. Let me transfer you to—" "Michael James Halsey," the voice interrupted, suddenly sharp and clear. "I know you can see me. I'm right outside your window. Rule number 3, rule number 6. Both broken." I looked up in panic. My cubicle had no window. We were in the middle of the floor, but in the reflection of my black computer screen, I saw an elderly man standing behind me, his skin gray and sagging, eyes milky white. There was nothing there when I spun around. The call disconnected on its own. My hands shook as I entered code 709XZ in the log. Across the floor, Deborah was staring at me, her eyes reflecting the fluorescent lights with that strange, animal-like glow. She knew. Somehow she knew what had just happened. "Mike," she called. "Break room, now." As I stood, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. "William Thornton died May 4th, 1937, Wyuka Cemetery, Lincoln. I'm not the one you should be afraid of, Mike. It's who comes next. Watch the clock tonight." I looked up at the wall clock. 11:37 p.m. Less than 4 hours until 3:17 a.m. The break room was eerily quiet, except for the hum of the ancient refrigerator in the corner. Deborah was already waiting, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. She looked different somehow, her posture too rigid, her gaze too intense. "Close the door," she said. I did, noticing how my hands trembled. "You entered code 709XZ, she stated flatly. "Tell me exactly what happened." I hesitated. Something told me I shouldn't reveal everything I knew. The caller knew my full name without me telling them, and they mentioned something about being outside a window. Deborah's expression didn't change, but she blinked very slowly, like a lizard. "And how did you know to use that specific code?" Her voice had an edge to it. "Training," I lied. "I remembered it from training." She took a step closer. "Mike, we both know you weren't trained on special protocols. Someone told you." My mouth went dry. It was Tommy, wasn't it?" she cut in. "He always was too soft-hearted. What else did he tell you?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again in my pocket. Deborah's eyes flicked down toward the sound. "Nothing," I said quickly, "just to be careful with certain calls." She studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "Listen carefully, Mike. This isn't a normal call center. You've figured that out by now, I hope. What you don't understand is that we're not just taking calls, we're containing them." "Containing what exactly?" "Things that shouldn't exist in our world but found a way in. Things that discovered they can reach us through telecommunications networks." She glanced at the clock on the wall. "They're strongest between midnight and 4 a.m., when the barrier is thinnest. That's why we're here." "What happened to Tommy?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Deborah's face hardened. "He broke protocol. Multiple violations. We couldn't protect him anymore." "We? Who's we?" "Management," she said simply. "Now get back to your desk. And Mike, whatever Tommy told you about following rules, he was right about that part. Break them, and we can't help you." When I returned to my cubicle, I checked my phone under the desk. The new text was from the same unknown number. "She's not what she seems. None of them are. Rule number 8. Trust no one in the building after midnight." Rule number 8? It wasn't on Tommy's list. My eyes darted around the call floor. Jason and Seth were on calls, their faces illuminated by their monitors. Krista was watching me, but quickly looked away when our eyes met. At 12:01 a.m., the power flickered briefly. When the light stabilized, I noticed something had changed. The exit signs were now a deep crimson instead of green, and the overhead fluorescence had taken on a subtle yellowish tint. My headset beeped with an incoming call. The caller ID showed 40 degrees 48 minutes, 23.2 seconds north, 96 degrees 42 minutes, 15.1 seconds west coordinates. Not a phone number. Rule number 1. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the accept button. Across the floor, Deborah was speaking with Seth, her back to me. I hit the transfer button, routing the call to extension 0000 without answering. My computer screen flashed once and displayed a message. Transfer accepted. Containment protocol initiated. The next call came through immediately after. This one had a proper number with a 402 area code, local to Lincoln. Mid-Plains Customer Solutions, this is Mike. How can I help you tonight? Mike, thank God. The voice was desperate, familiar. It's Tommy. My blood froze. "Tommy!" "Don't say my name again," he hissed. "They're listening. I don't have much time." "Where are you? What happened to you?" "I'm nowhere, Mike. I'm in between. Listen, there's more you need to know. The rules I gave you, they're incomplete." I glanced at the call timer. 2 minutes, 17 seconds. "The coordinates," I whispered. "That was you?" "Yes. They're for Wilderness Park, south of Lincoln. There's something buried there you need to find." His voice crackled with static. "A journal. My predecessor left it. Explains everything about what Mid-Plains really is, what they're doing to us." "Who's they?" "Deborah keeps talking about containment, but not Deborah. Above her. The real management. They're not..." The line distorted. Tommy's voice stretching and compressing. "Human. Using us as buffers. When we break, they replace us." I noticed Deborah walking toward my desk, her movements strangely fluid. "I have to go," I said urgently. "But Tommy, Rule 7. What happens at 3:17? The caller comes through, the one they're all working for. If you answer, you're marked, like me." His voice began to fade. "Find the journal. Trust Krista. She knows more than she lets on. And Mike, there's actually a Rule 0. If you hear..." The line went dead. Call duration, 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Deborah reached my desk, smiling thinly. "Everything okay over here?" "Fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just a routine call." She nodded, but her eyes lingered on my call log displayed on the screen. "Interesting. Local number, but I don't recognize it." "Who was it?" "Someone asking about their electric bill," I lied. "Nebraska Public Power District account." "I see." She tapped her fingers on my desk. 1, 2, 3, 4. Too many fingers. I could have sworn she only tapped 4 times, but I counted 5 fingernail marks on the laminate surface. "You know you can come to me if anything. Unusual happens, right?" "Of course," I said. After she walked away, I reached for my water bottle with shaking hands. The digital clock on my desk read 12:47 a.m. Krista rolled her chair over to my cubicle, ostensibly to borrow a pen. "Wilderness Park," she whispered, not looking at me. "South entrance off Saltillo Road. There's a hollow oak tree with a notch shaped like a crescent moon. Look inside." She rolled back to her desk without waiting for a response. I stared at her, but she kept her eyes fixed on her monitor. Another call came in. This time, instead of a number or coordinates, the caller ID showed only a series of symbols I couldn't decipher. My finger moved automatically to transfer it to 0000, but something stopped me. An overwhelming compulsion to answer. My hand, seemingly of its own accord, moved to the accept button. Behind me, I heard Krista's voice, urgent but quiet. "Mike." "No. Too late," I'd answered. "Mid-Plains Customer Solutions. This is Mike. How can I help you tonight?" There was no response. Just breathing. Heavy, wet breathing. Rule number 5. I needed to ask, "How may I direct your call?" 3 times, then hang up if there was no response. "How may I direct your call?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. The breathing continued, but now I could hear something else beneath it. A low, rhythmic sound, like hundreds of voices chanting in unison, too quiet to make out the words. "How may I direct your call?" I repeated. The chanting grew louder. I checked the call timer. 1 minute, 23 seconds. "How may I direct your call?" I asked for the 3rd and final time. The breathing stopped abruptly. Then a voice, or rather, many voices speaking as one. "We are coming for you all, Michael Halsey. Tonight, 3:17. I slammed the disconnect button, my heart racing. The wall clock now read 1:33 a.m. Less than 2 hours until whatever was coming arrived. I spent the next 20 minutes trying to look normal while my mind raced. Deborah had returned to her office, but I could see her through the glass partition, watching us. Seth hadn't moved or spoken to anyone all night. He just kept taking calls with mechanical efficiency. Jason was pacing near the water cooler, rubbing his temples. At 1:55 a.m., Krista stood up and announced loudly, "Going for a smoke break." She shot me a meaningful look as she headed for the elevator. I waited 5 minutes, then followed, muttering something about needing fresh air. Outside, the night was unnaturally still. No wind, no distant traffic sounds, just silence. The parking lot lights cast sickly yellow pools on the asphalt. Krista was leaning against the building's brick exterior, no cigarette in sight. "You need to leave," she said without preamble. "Now. Tonight." "And go where?" "Home?" She shook her head. "Not home. They know where you live. You need to find that journal in Wilderness Park, then get out of Lincoln altogether." "What the hell is going on here, Krista? What are these things we're talking to?" She glanced nervously at the security camera above the entrance, then pulled me farther along the building's edge, into a blind spot. "They call themselves the listeners," she whispered. "They found our telecommunications networks about 15 years ago and realized they could use them to cross over. At first, they just listened, hence the name. Then they started communicating. Then, changing things." "Changing what?" "Reality. People. They can't fully manifest in our world yet, but they can reach through, if that makes sense. Through phones, radios, anything that transmits signals." She hugged herself against the cold. "Mid-planes was created to contain them. We're like filters or buffers. We answer so others don't have to. We follow protocols to limit their influence." "But what happened to Tommy?" Her eyes glistened with tears. "He answered a call at 3:17. The caller, the one they all serve. It marked him, changed him. Then it took him." "And you know about this journal?" "Tommy told me before he disappeared. His predecessor left it for whoever came next. It's happened before. Too many times. Everyone who works night shift here either quits, disappears, or..." She trailed off. "Or what?" "Becomes like Deborah." Krista's voice dropped even lower. "She answered a call 5 years ago. Whatever came through, it's still in her, wearing her like a suit. Seth, too. They're not human anymore, Mike." A scraping sound from around the corner made us both freeze. Krista pressed a folded paper into my hand. "Bathroom, 3rd stall, under the tank lid," she whispered urgently. "Go back inside separately. Act normal." She walked away, circling back to the entrance. I waited 30 seconds, then followed a different path, unfolding the paper once I was alone. It contained a crude map of Wilderness Park, with an X marked near the south entrance, and below it, hastily scrawled, "Rule 0. If you hear your name called from an empty cubicle, never respond or look toward it." Inside, I headed straight for the men's room, checking under the stalls to ensure I was alone. In the 3rd stall, I carefully lifted the toilet tank lid. Taped underneath was a small flash drive. I pocketed it quickly and returned to the call floor. Deborah was standing by my vacant desk, scrolling through my call log on my computer. She looked up as I approached. "Extended break," she commented. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Stomach trouble," I lied, patting my abdomen. She nodded slowly. "It happens. Stress of the job." She moved aside, allowing me to sit. "Take the next hour easy. No calls. I've set you to unavailable." That was the last thing I wanted. An excuse for her to keep me off the phones while she watched me. "I'm fine, really," I insisted. "I can take calls." "I insist," she said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "Catch up on some paperwork. I need the monthly compliance reports filed." As she walked away, I noticed her shadow on the wall. It didn't move exactly with her body. It seemed to lag slightly, like there was a delay between her movements and her shadow's response. The clock read 2:21 a.m., less than an hour until 3:17. I opened the compliance reports as instructed, but minimized them to check my phone under the desk. I had another text from the unknown number. They know you know. Bathroom was a mistake. Krista is in danger. The flash drive contains coordinates for the real journal location. They moved it. I glanced up at Krista's desk. Empty. I hadn't seen her return from our break outside. My chest tightened with panic. Just then, the elevator dinged and Krista emerged, her face pale. She caught my eye briefly as she walked to her desk, giving a barely perceptible shake of her head. A warning. I turned back to my computer, trying to look busy with the compliance reports while I considered my options. With my status set to unavailable, I couldn't receive calls, which meant I couldn't get any more information from Tommy or whoever else might be trying to help me. I needed to see what was on the flash drive. The computers at Mid-Plains were heavily monitored. I couldn't just plug it in. But my personal laptop was in my car. If I could get outside again. The lights flickered, and the temperature in the office seemed to drop several degrees. On the far wall, the clock now read 2:46 a.m., but the digital display on my desk still showed 2:33 a.m. Time itself felt wrong, stretched and distorted. "Mike," the voice came from the empty cubicle to my right. Rule number 0, don't respond, don't look. "Mike." More insistent this time, the voice sounded like Tommy, but wrong. Like someone trying to imitate him without quite getting it right. I kept my eyes fixed on my screen, cold sweat beading on my forehead. "Look at me, Mike." The voice changed, becoming deeper, resonating with that same multi-toned quality I'd heard on the last call. "We just want to talk." From the corner of my eye, I could see something moving in the empty cubicle. A dark shape, shifting and undulating like smoke trying to form a human outline. My desk phone rang, making me jump. The caller ID displayed my own cell phone number. Without thinking, I answered, desperate for any interruption from the presence in the neighboring cubicle. "Hello?" "Don't look at it." Tommy's voice came through, urgent and clear. "It's not really there. It's trying to make you acknowledge it. Once you do, it can fully manifest." "What do I do?" I whispered. "Listen carefully. It's almost time. At exactly 3 a.m., Deborah and Seth will both leave the floor for exactly 7 minutes. Standard protocol. They go to receive instructions from management. That's your window. Get to Krista, and both of you get out. And go where? The flash drive. Check it now, under your desk. Use your phone." I discreetly connected the flash drive to my phone using an adapter I kept in my pocket. A single file opened. A GPS location on the outskirts of Lincoln near Denton. "I see it," I whispered. "Good. There's an abandoned farmhouse there. The journal is hidden in the root cellar. You need..." The line went dead. The presence in the neighboring cubicle had vanished, but now my monitor displayed a message. "Unauthorized communication detected. Security protocol initiated." Alarms began to blare throughout the building. Red emergency lights pulsed, replacing the normal fluorescence. Deborah emerged from her office, her movements jerky and unnaturally fast. "System breach," she announced, her voice oddly calm despite the chaos. "All employees remain at your stations. Security personnel are en route to resolve the situation." I caught Krista's eye across the room. She mouthed a single word. "Now." The digital clock on my desk flipped to 3 a.m. exactly. As if on cue, Deborah gestured to Seth, and they both walked briskly toward a door marked "Management Only" at the back of the call floor. The moment it closed behind them, Krista was out of her seat. "Move it," she hissed, grabbing her purse. We have exactly 7 minutes before they return with security." "What about Jason?" I asked, looking at our co-worker who sat frozen at his desk, headset still on, staring blankly at his screen. "Too late for him," Krista said grimly. "He answered a call last week. He's already changing. Look at his hands." I noticed with horror that Jason's fingers had elongated, the joints bending at unnatural angles as they moved across his keyboard. We ran for the stairs, not trusting the elevator. 3 flights down, through the empty lobby, and out into the parking lot. The night remained eerily silent, the alarm somehow not audible outside the building. "My car," I said, pointing to my old Honda Civic. "No," Krista countered. "They'll track it. We take mine and ditch it outside the city." We sprinted to her Subaru. As she fumbled with the keys, I looked back at the Mid-Plains building. In every single window, on every floor, faces were pressed against the glass, dozens of them, watching us. But the building should have been empty except for our department on the 3rd floor. "Krista," I said, my voice shaking. "Look!" She glanced up and cursed, finally getting the door unlocked. "Don't look at them. Get in." As we peeled out of the parking lot, I checked the time on the dashboard. 3:06 a.m. We had made it out. But for how long? The clock was still ticking toward 3:17. Krista drove like someone possessed, speeding down O Street before cutting south onto 14th. The digital clock on her dashboard read 3:12 a.m. 5 minutes until whatever was supposed to happen at 3:17. "They'll be after us by now," she said, checking the rearview mirror constantly. "Deborah has connections with local police. They'll report your car stolen first, then mine when they realize we switched. Where exactly are we going? The coordinates point to somewhere near Denton." "Old Hanson farmhouse. Abandoned since the 80s after a murder-suicide the papers called unexplained. The company bought the land through a shell corporation." She took a sharp turn onto Highway 77, heading southwest. "No one goes there. Perfect place to hide something they don't want found." "How do you know all this?" Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "My sister worked the night shift before me. She disappeared 3 years ago. Left me a letter with cryptic warnings I didn't understand until I started working there myself." A notification pinged on my phone. Another text from the unknown number. 3:17 is approaching. Whatever happens, don't answer any calls. The caller is searching." As if on cue, my phone began to ring. The caller ID showed my mom's number. My mom who died 2 years ago from cancer. Krista glanced over. "Don't answer that. It says it's my mother." "It's not," she said flatly. "They can mimic numbers, voices, anything to get you to pick up." The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. This time it displayed my dad's number, then my old roommate, then Tommy's. Numbers cycling through people I knew, living and dead. The dashboard clock clicked to 3:16 a.m. "Almost there," Krista muttered, increasing her speed as we passed the Lincoln city limits. "Just 1 more minute." The radio suddenly turned on by itself, scanning rapidly through stations. Static, fragments of songs, snippets of late-night talk shows, all blurring together. Then it stopped on dead air, just quiet static. "Hello, Michael." "Hello, Krista." The voice came through the speakers, each syllable precisely articulated. "Did you really think leaving the building would save you?" Krista tried to turn off the radio, but the knob snapped off in her hand. "You've both broken protocol. The consequences are quite severe, I'm afraid." The clock hit 3:17 a.m. All at once, every electronic device in the car went haywire. The headlights flashed in rapid sequence. The windshield wipers thrashed back and forth. The car horn began blaring. My phone, Krista's phone, the car radio, all emitted the same high-pitched tone that grew progressively louder. "Cover your ears!" Krista shouted, struggling to keep the car on the road. The digital displays in the car all changed to show the same thing, 17-9-413-1, the number from my first unusual call. Through the cacophony, the voice continued, unnaturally calm. "Krista Novak, you've been most uncooperative. We gave you a second chance after your sister's departure. You won't receive a third." The car began to accelerate on its own, the speedometer climbing past 80, then 90. Krista fought with the steering wheel, pumping the brakes frantically. "Mike," she gasped. "The glove compartment. Iron box. Open it." I fumbled with the latch, my ears ringing from the noise. Inside was a small metal box with strange symbols etched into its surface. I opened it to find a crude device, what looked like an old Walkman gutted and rewired with additional components I didn't recognize. "Press the red button," Krista shouted. "It's an EMP. It'll kill everything electronic, including the car. Just do it." The clock hit 3:18 a.m. The voice from the radio laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Too late. The caller has your frequencies now. You're marked." Blood began to trickle from Krista's nose and ears. My own head felt like it was about to split open, pressure building inside my skull. The car was now doing over 100 miles per hour, heading straight for a sharp curve. I pressed the button. Everything went silent and dark. The car's engine died instantly, along with the lights, radio, and our phones. The sudden silence was almost as shocking as the noise had been. We were coasting on momentum, slowing rapidly in the pitch black of rural Nebraska's midnight countryside. "Holy shit," I breathed, my ears still ringing in the silence. "What was that?" Krista didn't answer. In the faint moonlight, I could see her slumped against the steering wheel, blood still streaming from her nose. The car drifted to the roadside and came to a stop in the gravel. "Krista?" I shook her shoulder gently. She groaned, lifting her head. "Did it work?" "Yeah, everything's dead." I looked out at the dark road. "Including the car, where are we?" She fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a small flashlight. Analog, nothing electronic about it. The beam cut through the darkness as she checked her surroundings. "About 5 miles from the farmhouse," she said, wiping blood from her face with her sleeve. "We'll have to walk. They'll be searching the roads." We grabbed what we could. Her flashlight, the now useless EMP device, a first aid kit from her trunk, and a bottled water. The night was cold, unnaturally so for Nebraska in September. Our breath fogged in the flashlight beam as we set off across a cornfield, using the stars for navigation. "That voice," I said after we'd been walking for several minutes. "Was that the caller?" Krista shook her head. "Number that was just one of its servants. The harbinger, Tommy called it. It announces the caller, prepares the way." "What exactly is the caller? What does it want?" She was quiet for a moment, just the sound of cornstalks brushing against our clothes as we pushed through them. The journal will explain it better than I can, but the short version? It's ancient. It discovered our world decades ago through early radio signals. It exists in a place where thought and signal are the same thing. Communication is reality. Every time someone answers its call, it gets stronger, closer to fully manifesting here. "And Tommy?" He answered. But he fought it somehow. Most people who answer are just gone. Or changed, like Deborah. Tommy's different. He's caught between worlds, fighting to warn others. We emerged from the cornfield onto a dirt road. In the distance, silhouetted against the night sky, stood a dilapidated farmhouse, its windows dark empty sockets. "There it is," Krista whispered. "Hanson Farm." As we approached, the air grew colder. The flashlight beam seemed to weaken, struggling to penetrate the unnatural darkness surrounding the property. The house itself was a 2-story wooden structure, paint long since worn away, the porch sagging dangerously. "The root cellar," I said. "Where would it be?" "Around back, probably. These old farms usually." She stopped abruptly. In the distance behind us, headlights appeared on the highway we'd abandoned. 2 vehicles, moving slowly, searchlights sweeping the fields. One turned onto the dirt road leading to the farm. "They found us," Krista hissed, killing the flashlight. "Move!" We ran for the house, staying low. The back door hung half off its hinges, and we slipped inside, finding ourselves in what had once been a kitchen. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath our feet. "There," Krista pointed to a door in the floor, a cellar entrance. She yanked it open, revealing a set of rotting wooden stairs descending into absolute darkness. The searchlight beams were visible through the windows now, moving closer. "Go," she urged. "I'll hold them off." "What? No way. You're coming with me." She pressed the flashlight into my hand. "Find the journal. It's our only hope of understanding how to fight them. I'll create a diversion." Before I could protest further, she was gone, moving toward the front of the house. I hesitated for only a moment before descending into the darkness below, pulling the cellar door closed above me. The root cellar smelled of damp earth and decay. The flashlight revealed rough stone walls, lined with empty preserving jars and rusted farm tools. At the far end was a dirt floor section that looked recently disturbed. I dropped to my knees and began digging with my bare hands. Above me, I heard car doors slam and voices calling out. Then Krista's voice, shouting, drawing them away from the house. 3 feet down, my fingers struck something solid. A metal box, similar to the one that had held the EMP device but larger. I pulled it from the earth just as gunshots rang out from outside. More gunshots. A scream. Then silence. I froze, the metal box clutched to my chest, listening for any sound of Krista. Nothing. My flashlight beam trembled as I examined the box. It had a simple combination lock. 3 dials with numbers 0 to 9. I had no idea what the combination might be. Footsteps creaked on the floorboards above. Heavy, deliberate steps moving room to room. Searching. I killed the flashlight and pressed myself against the cold stone wall, barely breathing. The cellar door rattled. A beam of light cut through the darkness as it opened. "Mike?" Krista's voice called down. "Are you there?" I almost responded before catching myself. It sounded like Krista, but after everything I'd seen, I couldn't be sure. Rule number 0. If you hear your name called, never respond. "I know you're down there," the voice continued, still sounding exactly like Krista. "They're gone. It's safe now. Did you find it?" The beam of light swept the cellar, passing inches from my hiding spot behind a stack of rotting wooden crates. I remained silent, clutching the box. "Fine," the voice sighed, no longer sounding quite like Krista. It took on that multi-toned quality I'd heard before. "We'll do this the hard way." The cellar door slammed shut. A lock clicked. I was trapped. Above me, multiple sets of footsteps now moved across the floor. I heard furniture being dragged, glass breaking. They were tearing the place apart. I turned my flashlight back on, keeping the beam pointed at the floor to minimize the chance of it being seen through the cracks. I needed to open this box. The combination lock stared back at me mockingly. 3 dials, 1,000 possible combinations, but something about the numbers tickled my memory. The strange caller ID from earlier, 17-9-4-13-1. Those weren't just random numbers, they were a code. I quickly tried setting the dials to 179. Nothing. The lock remained secure. I tried 413, still nothing. Then it hit me. The rule numbers. Tommy's list had 7 rules, plus the rule number 0 Krista had told me about, and the mysterious rule number 8 from the text message. With trembling fingers, I set the dials to 807. The lock clicked open. Inside the box was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. Tucked inside the front cover was a folded map of Nebraska, with locations circled in red ink, and a USB drive similar to the one Krista had given me. I opened the journal to the first page. The handwriting was cramped but legible. My name is Daniel Mercer. If you're reading this, then you've become part of something terrible. I'm sorry. I was night supervisor at Mid-Plains from 1997 to 2003. I'm writing this in hiding. They're hunting me, but I need to leave a record of what I've learned about the listeners and the caller before they find me. The heavy footsteps above had stopped. In the silence, I could hear a faint scratching at the cellar door. They knew I was here. I flipped through the journal frantically, scanning for anything that might help me escape. Pages of observations, theories, diagrams of strange symbols. Then I found an entry titled, Rules for Survival. Rule number 1, they cannot physically manifest without invitation. Don't acknowledge them, don't respond to them, don't even look directly at them unless absolutely necessary. Rule number 2, iron disrupts their ability to maintain form in our reality. Keep iron objects with you at all times. Rule number 3, they cannot cross running water under their own power. Rule number 4, electronic devices are conduits for their influence. If possible, avoid using phones, computers, anything with a signal. Rule number 5, they are strongest between midnight and dawn, with peak power at 3:17 a.m., the exact time the first radio signal was broadcast across the Atlantic in 1901. Rule number 6, if they learn your true name, full birth name, they can track you anywhere. Use aliases, nicknames only. Rule number 7, salt creates boundaries they cannot easily cross. Rule number 8, silver repels the changed ones, humans who have been altered to serve them. The scratching at the door grew louder, more insistent. I continued reading, heartbeat pounding in my ears. Mid-Plains exists to contain the listeners, but it's a lie. The company was founded by a cult that worships the caller. They don't want to contain it. They want to bring it through. The call center is a focal point, a place where the barrier between worlds is deliberately weakened. The protocols, the rules we enforced, they were never meant to protect us. They were designed to identify those with the strongest psychic sensitivity to the listeners. People like me, people like you, if you're reading this. We answer the calls so they can mark us, find us in the crowd. Every time someone breaks protocol, the caller gets stronger. Every time someone disappears, it pulls a little more of itself into our world. The cult believes when the caller fully manifests, it will transform reality itself, remake our world in the image of the space between signals. The lock on the cellar door rattled, then broke with a splintering crack. I shoved the journal into my jacket and looked around desperately for an escape route. The cellar had no windows, no other doors. I was cornered. But there, in the far corner, a narrow drainage pipe, maybe 2 feet in diameter, half hidden behind fallen shelving. I squeezed myself through the opening, dragging the metal box with me. The pipe was cold and damp, smelling of mildew and stagnant water. Behind me, the cellar door crashed open. Flashlight beams swept the room I'd just vacated. I held my breath, pulling myself deeper into the pipe. The passage sloped downward, forcing me to slide on my stomach through puddles of foul water. After about 20 feet, it opened into a larger drainage tunnel. I could stand, hunched over, my flashlight revealing rusty pipes running along concrete walls streaming with moisture. Rule number 3, they cannot cross running water under their own power. I sloshed forward, hoping the tunnel led somewhere, anywhere away from the farmhouse. The journal had mentioned a map. If I could find a place to hide, to study it properly. The tunnel forked. I chose the branch that seemed to slope upward, praying it led to an exit. After another 100 feet, I saw the first glimmer of night sky ahead. The tunnel opened into a culvert beneath a country road. I emerged into the cool night air, filthy and soaking wet, but alive. In the distance, I could see the farmhouse, now fully illuminated by vehicle headlights. At least 3 SUVs with Mid-Plains logos on their sides were parked in the yard. A figure stood apart from the others, staring directly at me despite the distance and darkness. Even from here, I recognized Deborah's distinctive posture. She raised one hand, pointing at me with those 2 long fingers, and the others turned to look. I ran. The road stretched empty in both directions, nothing but cornfields and darkness for miles. I had no idea which way led to safety, but I knew I couldn't outrun vehicles. I needed to hide. I spotted a small creek running parallel to the road about 50 yards into the field. Rule number 3, again. I splashed across, putting the water between me and my pursuers, then continued through the cornfield beyond. The stalks provided cover, but made navigation nearly impossible. I paused to catch my breath and get my bearings. The waning moon offered just enough light to make out a distant water tower silhouetted against the sky. Denton. If I could reach town, maybe I could find help, or at least a working phone. I pulled out the journal again, this time examining the map tucked inside. It showed Nebraska with several locations marked. Lincoln, obviously. Denton, places called Hallam and Emerald. A larger circle encompassed them all with a notation. Broadcast range, 1901. Something about that tickled my memory. The journal had mentioned 3:17 a.m. being significant, because it was the exact time the first radio signal was broadcast across the Atlantic in 1901. These locations must be significant to that event somehow. A mechanical roar broke the silence. A TVS. They were coming through the fields after me. I shoved the journal back into my jacket and ran, keeping the water tower in sight. The corn whipped at my face and arms as I pushed through, each stalk feeling like it was deliberately trying to slow me down. Behind me, the ATV engines grew louder. Searchlights cut through the field, sweeping back and forth. They hadn't crossed the creek yet, but they would find a way around eventually. As I ran, I fumbled for my phone out of habit, then remembered. The EMP had fried it, along with every other electronic device we'd had in the car. I was completely cut off. A dirt access road appeared ahead, cutting through the cornfield. I followed it, moving faster on the clear path despite the risk of being more visible. The water tower was closer now, and I could make out the first few buildings of Denton on the horizon. The road took a sharp turn around a small grove of trees, and I nearly collided with a figure standing directly in my path. Mike, thank God. It was Krista. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and she had a nasty cut above her eye, but she was alive. I almost embraced her before caution reasserted itself. "Prove you're really Krista," I demanded, backing away slightly. She seemed to understand immediately. Smart. The EMP device, it was my sister's. She built it after she started hearing the voices in the phones. The combination for the box is 807, the rule number's in reverse, and you still owe me $20 from the office pool last month. Relief flooded through me. How did you escape? Played dead. When they went to check the house, I ran for the fields. She glanced behind me. You found the journal? I nodded, patting my jacket. It explains everything. They're not containing the listeners, they're helping them. The whole company is a cult trying to bring something through. I knew it, she hissed. My sister suspected the same thing before she disappeared. The ATV engines revved louder, closer. Krista grabbed my arm. Come on. I know somewhere we can hide in Denton, my aunt's old place. It's been empty since she died, but I have a key. We ran together along the access road, the small town growing closer with each step. Behind us, the first ATV appeared, its headlight catching us in its beam. There! A voice shouted. Seth's voice, but distorted, deeper than humanly possible. Run! Krista urged, pulling ahead. Don't stop for anything! As we sprinted the final stretch toward Denton's outskirts, I realized we had just passed 4 a.m. We had survived 3:17, but dawn was still hours away, and somehow I knew that what waited for us in the coming darkness would make our experiences so far seem like just the beginning. Denton, Nebraska barely qualified as a town, a half-mile stretch of Main Street with a handful of businesses surrounded by scattered homes and family farms. At 4:30 a.m., it was completely deserted, every window dark. Krista led me through back alleys and side streets to avoid the main roads. We could hear ATVs circling the town's perimeter, searchlights sweeping methodically through the quiet neighborhoods. Here, she whispered, stopping at a small bungalow set back from the street. The yard was overgrown, mail overflowing from the box, clearly unoccupied for months. She retrieved a key from beneath a garden gnome and unlocked the door. We slipped inside, locking it behind us. The house smelled musty, furniture draped with sheets like pale ghosts in the darkness. My Aunt May's place, Krista explained, moving through the dark with familiar ease. She was like us, sensitive. She taught me things that kept me alive when my sister disappeared. In the kitchen, Krista pulled down the shades before risking a small flashlight. She moved to the pantry and began pulling out supplies: candles, matches, a container of salt, several iron horseshoes, and a revolver that looked old but well-maintained. Your aunt was prepared, I observed. May knew what was out there. She worked for the railroad back when they first installed the telegraph lines across Nebraska. She was one of the first to hear the listeners trying to come through. Krista placed candles around the kitchen and lit them, creating a warm glow that felt safer than any electric light. She taught my sister, who taught me. I pulled out the journal and spread it on the kitchen table alongside the map. Then you need to see this. We pored over Daniel Mercer's journal together. Beyond what I'd already read, it contained detailed accounts of his time at Mid-Plains, records of unusual calls, descriptions of employees who had disappeared or changed. The final entries grew increasingly paranoid, the handwriting deteriorating. They're using the call centers to create a network, human conduits linked through telecommunications. Every night shift worker who answers is assessed for compatibility. The compatible ones are marked for replacement or transformation. The incompatible ones simply disappear. The cult believes the caller needs 333 compatible vessels to maintain permanent presence in our reality. By my count, they've secured at least 270 over the past decade. The last page contained a hastily scrawled note. They found me. If you're reading this, find the broadcast origin, end the signal. The map, Krista said, pulling it closer. These locations form a pattern. She was right. When connected, the marked towns around Lincoln formed a perfect pentagram with the Mid-Plains building at its center. It's a ritual circuit, she explained. My aunt told me about these. They're using the geography itself to amplify the signal. But what's this broadcast origin Mercer mentioned, and what did he mean by end the signal? Krista studied the map, her finger tracing the pattern. In 1901, Guglielmo Marconi sent the first transatlantic radio signal, but before that, he conducted tests using smaller transmitters. Her finger stopped on a small X marked near Emerald, Nebraska. This must be it, the location of a test broadcast station. December 12, 1901, at 3:17 a.m. Central Time, corresponding with Marconi's successful transmission. You think that's when they first made contact with the listeners? Through Marconi's transmission? It makes sense. That first signal punched a hole through the barrier between worlds. A small one, but enough for them to start pushing through. They've been working to widen it ever since. A thought struck me. The coordinates that Tommy sent, the ones that looked like a phone number, 1794131, could that be a date? 17th of September, 1941? Krista's eyes widened. The first commercial FM radio broadcast in the U.S., another breakthrough in signal technology. So, the listeners aren't just using modern telecommunications. They've been infiltrating every new communication breakthrough for over a century. We fell silent, contemplating the magnitude of what we were facing. Outside, an ATV engine rumbled past the house, then faded into the distance. "They're still searching," Krista murmured, "but they won't find us if we're careful. The house is protected." I looked around. Protected how? She pointed to the doorways and windows. In the candlelight, I could now see small iron nails hammered into the frames, forming continuous lines. The windowsills all had thin channels, filled with salt. "Smart ant," I said. "We should be safe until dawn at least. That's when their power wanes." She rubbed her temples, exhaustion evident in every line of her face. "We need a plan. We can't keep running forever." I flipped through more pages of the journal, looking for anything that might help. Near the back, I found technical diagrams for what looked like early radio equipment, with modifications noted in Mercer's handwriting. "Look at this," I said, pointing to a sketch labeled Signal Disruptor. Krista studied it. It's a design for a device that could interrupt the specific frequency they use to communicate. But building this would require parts we don't have. Technical knowledge neither of us possesses. "Maybe not," I said, pulling out the USB drive that had been tucked into the journal. "What do you want to bet this has more information?" "Even if it does, we'd need a computer. After the EMP, we're completely off-grid." I paused. "Which might actually be protecting us right now." Krista nodded slowly. "Until we reconnect to any electronic communications, they can't track us directly. They have to rely on their human agents." A sound from the front of the house made us both freeze, the soft creak of a floorboard. Someone was inside. Krista extinguished our candles with practiced speed, plunging us into darkness. She handed me the revolver, motioning for me to cover the kitchen doorway while she crept toward the sound. I held the gun awkwardly, having never fired one before. The metal was cold and heavy in my hands, the responsibility of it terrifying. Seconds stretched into minutes of tense silence. Then Krista's voice, barely a whisper. "Mike, come here." Slowly. I edged toward her voice, finding her crouched in the hallway near the front door. The door was still locked, all windows intact. But in the faint moonlight filtering through the curtains, I could see what had caught her attention. A landline phone on the hall table. Its cord had been severed. Aunt May's precaution, presumably. But now the cut ends were slowly, impossibly, reaching toward each other like living tendrils, trying to reconnect. "They're getting stronger," Krista whispered. "They're starting to affect physical reality directly." As we watched, the severed phone cord completed its unnatural reunion. The phone immediately began to ring, loud in the silent house. Ring, ring, ring. "Don't answer it," Krista warned unnecessarily. I had no intention of touching it, but the ringing continued, insistent and somehow threatening. After the 7th ring, it stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse. Then a voice emerged from the receiver, though no one had picked up the handset. A voice I recognized. "Mike?" "Buddy, you there?" Jason's voice, our co-worker from Mid-Plains. "I know you can hear me. I just want to talk." We remained frozen, barely breathing. "They're not what you think, Mike. The listeners, they're not invaders. They're liberators. They're going to free us from the limitations of physical form." His voice changed subtly as he spoke, gaining that multi-toned quality I'd come to dread. "Krista hasn't told you everything. Ask her about her sister. Ask her what really happened." I glanced at Krista. Her face was a rigid mask in the dim light. "The caller is coming, Mike. Not just at 3:17 anymore. Soon it will be here all the time. Wouldn't you rather be on the winning side? All you have to do is pick up, just once." The phone began to emit a high-pitched tone that made my teeth ache. Blood trickled from Krista's nose again. The windows vibrated in their frames. "Answer me, Michael James Halsey," the voice commanded, no longer pretending to be Jason. "Answer me." With a sudden movement, Krista grabbed a heavy iron doorstop from the floor and smashed it down on the phone, shattering the plastic casing. The tone stopped abruptly. "We need to leave," she said, her voice shaking. "Now, they've found us." Through the front window, we could see headlights approaching, multiple vehicles converging on the house from different directions. "Back door," Krista directed, grabbing the journal and map from the kitchen. "There's a tool shed behind the house with a storm cellar beneath it. It has a tunnel that comes out near the railroad tracks." More secrets. More hidden knowledge she hadn't shared until necessary. Jason's words echoed in my mind. Ask her about her sister. Ask her what really happened. As we slipped out the back door into the pre-dawn darkness, I realized I was following someone I didn't fully trust, running from people who claimed they wanted to help, all because of rules left by a man who'd vanished years ago. But what choice did I have? The sky was beginning to lighten ever so slightly to the east as we sprinted across the overgrown backyard. In the shed, Krista moved aside a stack of garden tools to reveal a trapdoor. It opened to a narrow set of earthen stairs. "Down there," she urged, "quickly." As I descended into the darkness, the journal clutched to my chest, and the revolver still in my hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial. The caller, the listeners, Mid-Plains, Krista, her sister, the specific timing of 3:17 a.m. How did it all connect? And more importantly, was I running towards safety or into an even more elaborate trap? The tunnel was barely 5 feet high, forcing us to hunch as we moved forward. Krista's flashlight created elongated shadows that seemed to move independently of our movements. The air was stale, smelling of damp earth and something else, something metallic and unpleasant. "Your aunt built this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "During the Cold War, she was convinced the world was ending." Krista's voice echoed slightly. "Turns out she was right about the threat, just wrong about its nature." The tunnel stretched for what felt like half a mile before widening into a small chamber with a ladder leading upward. The walls here were different, reinforced with concrete and covered in strange symbols painted in what looked unnervingly like dried blood. "What are these?" I asked, pointing to the markings. "Protection glyphs. Aunt May called them signal jammers. They disrupt the listener's ability to track us." Krista approached the ladder. "This comes up inside an old maintenance shed by the railroad tracks. From there, we can follow the tracks to Emerald." "Emerald? Where the broadcast origin is supposed to be?" She nodded. "If Mercer was right, that's where we'll find a way to stop this." As she reached for the ladder, I made a decision. I raised the revolver, not pointing it directly at her, but keeping it visible. "Before we go any further, I need the truth. What happened to your sister?" Krista froze, her back to me. For a long moment, she didn't move or speak. "Jason said to ask you. He implied you've been hiding something from me." She turned slowly, her expression unreadable in the shadowy light. "You're going to trust the word of someone who's been turned? Someone working for them?" I don't know who to trust anymore, but I know when I'm not getting the whole story. She sighed, shoulders slumping. My sister was night supervisor before Deborah. She discovered what Mid-Plains was really doing and tried to stop it. She gathered evidence, recorded calls, documented everything. She was going to expose them. What happened? They caught her, but instead of killing her or making her disappear like the others, they did something worse. Krista's voice cracked. They changed her, altered her. She became one of them, the first of what Mercer calls compatible vessels. A walking, talking conduit for the listeners to experience our world directly. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Your sister? Is she still at Mid-Plains? Krista met my eyes directly. You've met her, Mike. My sister is Deborah. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Deborah, the night supervisor with her 2 long fingers and eyes that reflected light like an animal's. The woman who had been watching me, testing me, ever since Tommy disappeared. That's why you took the job at Mid-Plains, I realized. You're trying to save her. I was, until I realized there's nothing left to save. Whatever my sister was, she's gone now. The thing wearing her face is something else entirely. Krista wiped away a tear with an angry gesture. So now I just want to end it. Stop them before they can do this to anyone else. I lowered the gun, believing her at last. How do we do that? The broadcast origin. If we can disrupt the original signal source, we might be able to break their connection to our world completely. She turned back to the ladder. But we have to hurry. Dawn's coming, and that's when they'll be weakest. Our best chance. We emerged from the tunnel into a dilapidated wooden shed beside abandoned railroad tracks overgrown with weeds. The eastern sky was lightening to a pale gray, but true sunrise was still at least half an hour away. This way, Krista said, setting off along the tracks toward the west. Emerald is about 3 miles from here. We walked in tense silence, constantly scanning our surroundings for pursuers. But the countryside was quiet, almost unnaturally so. No birds, no insects, not even the distant sound of traffic from the highway that should have been audible even here. It's too quiet, I murmured, like the world is holding its breath. They're preparing, Krista replied grimly. Tonight is special. What do you mean? December 12th, 1901. That was when it all started with Marconi's signal. Today is September 17th, 2023. The numbers clicked in my head. 17 September 1941, the first commercial FM broadcast. And tonight at 3:17 a.m., September 18th, it will be exactly 82 years since that broadcast. A resonance point. The caller believes it will have enough compatible vessels to make a permanent breach. We crested a small rise, and there in the distance, we could see the remains of Emerald, a ghost town that had once been a railroad depot. A single structure dominated the landscape, a weather-beaten water tower rising above the few collapsed buildings that remained. There, Krista pointed. The broadcast origin will be beneath the water tower. That's where they would have placed the equipment to maximize signal range. As we approached, I noticed something disturbing. The rusted metal of the water tower was moving, rippling like liquid despite its solid nature. The air around it seemed to bend and distort, as if the tower existed in multiple places simultaneously. Reality is thin here, Krista whispered. The barrier between worlds is breaking down. We picked our way through the ruins of the town, stepping carefully over fallen beams and around collapsed walls. At the base of the water tower was a concrete bunker. its heavy door hanging open. Inside, illuminated by the growing dawn light filtering through cracks in the structure, was a room filled with antiquated radio equipment, and seated at the main console, casually adjusting dials as if expecting us, was Tommy Winters. "Took you long enough," he said, looking up with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't make it." "Tommy?" I stepped forward, then hesitated. Something wasn't right. His movements were too fluid, his skin too pale. "Not exactly," he replied. His voice resonated oddly in the concrete chamber. "Tommy is unavailable at present. I'm merely borrowing his frequency." Krista raised the revolver. "You're the Harbinger." "Very good, Krista Novak. You're as perceptive as your sister was." Tommy, or whatever was using his form, stood up. "But you're too late. The resonance is already building. By tonight, the caller will fully manifest, and this primitive reality will be transformed." "We're not too late," I countered, pulling out Mercer's journal. "We know how to disrupt the signal. End this once and for all." The thing wearing Tommy's face laughed, a sound like static and breaking glass. Daniel Mercer. Another vessel that failed to meet specifications. His theories were incomplete. As it spoke, I noticed something behind it. A device that looked like an old radio transmitter, but modified with components that seemed out of place, too modern for the vintage equipment. A steady red light pulsed on its control panel in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. "The journal," I said, keeping its attention on me while Krista edged sideways, trying to get a clear shot at the transmitter. "It says the caller needs 333 compatible vessels. You only have 270 inches. That was true when Mercer wrote his little diary, but times change, technology improves, efficiency increases. Tommy's face smiled with too many teeth. "We only need one more now. Just one perfect vessel to complete the circuit." "Me," I realized. "That's why you marked me, why you've been chasing me. You have the perfect resonance frequency. We've been searching for someone like you for decades." It took a step toward me. "Don't fight it, Michael. Transformation is inevitable. Evolution demands it." Krista fired. The bullet struck the transmitter, sending sparks flying. The red light flickered but didn't go out. The Harbinger didn't even turn to look. It flicked one hand dismissively, and Krista was thrown against the concrete wall, the gun clattering from her grip. "Pitiful," it said. "Did you really think it would be that simple?" I lunged for the fallen revolver, but an invisible force pinned me in place. The Harbinger approached, Tommy's face now distorting, features running like melting wax to reveal something else beneath, something composed of angles that shouldn't exist, glimpses of a form that human eyes weren't meant to comprehend. "The time has come, Michael James Halsey. Answer the call. Become the final vessel." The modified transmitter began to emit a high-pitched tone that drilled into my skull. Blood ran from my nose and ears. I could feel something pressing against my consciousness, trying to get in, to hollow me out and take residence in the empty space. No, I gasped, fighting the invasion with everything I had. Through blurring vision, I saw Krista stirring, crawling towards something on the floor. Not the gun, but the journal that had fallen from my pocket. She opened it to a page near the back, then looked up at me, mouthing a single word: name. Rule number 6 from the journal flashed in my mind. If they learn your true name, full birth name, they can track you anywhere. Names had power. The Harbinger had used my full name to anchor its influence on me. But maybe... "I know what you are," I managed to say, fighting against the pressure in my mind. "I know your true name." The Harbinger paused, its distorted features registering what might have been concern. "You are the Harbinger of signals, the voice between stations, the first listener." I was speaking words I didn't consciously know. information flowing from some deep part of my mind that had connected to Mercer's research. You are 17-94-13-1. The creature recoiled as if struck. The pressure in my head lessened slightly. You were never meant to cross over, I continued, growing stronger as its influence weakened. You are the messenger, not the message. The medium, not the content. Silence! It shrieked, the sound causing the concrete around us to crack. But I couldn't stop now. I reject your signal. I terminate your connection. I close the circuit. Krista had reached the transmitter. With a final surge of effort, she jammed an iron railroad spike, pulled from her pocket, directly into its central processing unit. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Harbinger screamed, a sound beyond human hearing that I felt rather than heard. Tommy's borrowed form collapsed inward like a paper shell, revealing a writhing mass of signal waves and distorted light that rapidly dispersed into nothing. The transmitter exploded in a shower of sparks and broken components. The concrete bunker began to shake and crumble around us. "Run!" Krista shouted, grabbing my arm. We staggered out of the bunker as the water tower above us groaned and twisted, metal tearing apart as reality reasserted itself. The entire structure collapsed behind us as we ran, burying the broadcast origin beneath tons of twisted metal and concrete. We didn't stop running until we reached the railroad tracks, collapsing in exhaustion as the sun finally crested the horizon. Its golden light seemed to burn away the last traces of the unnatural darkness that had pursued us through the night. Is it over? I gasped between ragged breaths. Krista looked back at the ruined water tower, now just an ordinary pile of debris in the morning light. The origin point is destroyed, she said, but the caller has had over a century to establish footholds in our world. Mid-Plains is still out there. Deborah, Seth, all the other vessels. So what do we do now? She reached into her pocket and pulled out the USB drive from the journal. We follow Mercer's last instructions. We end the signal, all of it. As we sat there in the growing daylight, I knew our ordeal was far from over, but for the first time since finding Tommy's rules, I felt something close to hope. The night shift had ended, but our real work was just beginning. 3 weeks later, I sat in a motel room outside Omaha, watching the local news on a muted television. A reporter stood in front of the Mid-Plains building in Lincoln, which was surrounded by police cars and emergency vehicles. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Local business raided in federal investigation." Krista entered, closing the door and drawing the blackout curtains before speaking. "It's done. The data is uploaded. Mercer's research, the journal, Tommy's rules, the recordings, everything. By morning, it'll be on every major news site and government server." I nodded, feeling a weight lift slightly from my shoulders. We'd spent the past weeks carefully compiling evidence, recording testimony, building a case that couldn't be dismissed as the ravings of paranoid minds. The USB drive had contained not just Mercer's research, but recordings of actual calls, evidence of disappearances, financial links between Mid-Plains and shell companies dating back to Marconi's time. "Do you think it'll be enough?" I asked. Krista didn't answer immediately. She sat on the edge of the bed, the dark circles under her eyes testament to how little she'd slept since our escape from Emerald. "It doesn't have to convince everyone," she finally said. "Just enough people to investigate, to start asking questions. The cult can't operate if they're under scrutiny." On the nightstand between our beds sat the revolver and a new burner phone, our 13th in 3 weeks. We never kept a phone more than 24 hours, never used any device long enough for them to track us. "And the other call centers?" I asked. The journal mentioned there were 7 across the country. "One problem at a time," she said, the ghost of a smile crossing her face. "We disrupt one signal, then the next, like Mercer said, We end it all. I turned back to the TV. The camera was now showing officers leading people out of the Mid-Plains building in handcuffs. I recognized some of the day shift managers I'd rarely interacted with. No sign of Deborah or Seth. "They won't find them," Krista said, following my gaze. "The compatible vessels aren't there anymore. They've scattered, gone underground. Including your sister." Her face hardened. "That's not my sister anymore." The news footage cut to a familiar face. Jason, our former co-worker, being interviewed by reporters. He looked normal, human, not like the partly transformed thing I'd last seen at the call center. He was emphatic, animated, telling some story the reporters seemed to be eating up. "He's lying," Krista observed. "Damage control. They'll try to paint us as disgruntled employees, conspiracy theorists, maybe even the perpetrators of whatever crimes they uncover. But the evidence will speak for itself. But we still need to be careful." She checked her watch. "It's almost midnight. We should move again before dawn." I nodded, beginning to pack our meager belongings. 3 weeks of constant movement, changing locations daily, avoiding electronic devices, sleeping in shifts. This was our life now, running, hiding, fighting back when we could. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, somehow reaching our supposedly untraceable burner. 317 is coming, Michael. Not just at night anymore. We're learning, adapting. Every broadcast, every transmission, every signal. We're still here, always listening, always calling. I showed Krista. She took the phone, removed the battery, and crushed both under her heel without a word. Outside, a car passed slowly through the parking lot, its headlights sweeping across our curtained window. We froze, waiting in tense silence until it moved on. The digital clock on the nightstand flipped to 12:01 a.m., a new day beginning. Somewhere in the darkness, a phone was ringing.